When you watch someone racing, you normally start by seeing them line up on the start line, ready to go, which is what I would have done for 10 years of my professional career as an athlete. But today, we're going to give you the full picture, starting with this.
But Andy Baddeley has been running very, very strongly indeed. 3:27.8.
Come on, Andy.
So it's Thursday morning, and later on today, I'm going to be trying to win my first 5k race in years and years, since retiring as a professional athlete, in fact. Now, there's loads of stuff that goes on race day before towing the start line. So I'm going to give you a glimpse into what a day would have been like for me training as elite back in 2016, starting with a shakeout run, which I'm on now. But why do a shakeout run? Surely you get tired before the race itself. Well, no, I've actually travelled for this race, and the race itself is pretty late on. It's like 5 or 6 p.m. So I've got the whole day to kill, and I was feeling sluggish, so it wakes my body up. It gets my body prepped, essentially, to go and do a hard effort later on. So there's the physiological reasons in terms of getting your body primed and ready to go, and maybe over recovering from the transport, but also the psychological reasons. I feel like this sets me up for the day. Often there's a lot of time to kill for me when I'm racing in the afternoon or evening, and this just kind of gets me in the psychological zone where I know a race is coming and I feel just that little bit fresher and ready to go. Shakeout jog, about 10 minutes, done. My body's feeling nice and warm and a little bit looser, but I'll finish that off by doing some gentle dynamic drills and movements just to activate all of the muscle groups that gone to sleep a little bit during the travel, ready for what's to come later in the day. And then I'll follow those with 2, 3, maybe even 4 100-meter strides at probably 7 or 8 out of 10. So maybe just around about that 5k pace or a little bit slower. Back in for a shower, and then essentially it's just getting on with a normal day. Quite a lot of time to fill. Certainly when I was an elite athlete, you're spending a lot of time in the hotel during the day, just trying not to exert any more energy, and also just take your mind off what's to come so that you're fully mentally and physically fresh when it comes to it. So that's going to be relaxing as much as possible. Then grabbing some lunch, and I would definitely drag out both my breakfast and my lunch a little bit, making sure I'm eating the right thing to give me enough energy for later on. Then, once I've had a little bit more of a read to take my mind off it, because I wasn't very good at not being nervous, I'd then be packing my bag up, making sure I'd laid everything out, got it all ready so I knew exactly what shoes, socks, t-shirt, etc. I was going to be wearing, getting that in the bag along with some hydration and some fuel, and then it would be a case of hopping on the coach and heading to the race. I had that weird pre-race feeling that I now remember, but I'd forgotten about, where I feel like I need to go to sleep. I'm yawning with the kind of adrenaline, which is weird. So it's a weird throwback. So now I just want to get it done. I want to get there, get my warm-up done and get going. Arriving at the race, then it's time to grab the bib number. This one's really exciting because it's got my name on it, which takes me back to being an elite athlete. That was always the really exciting bit. Then I would methodically and painstakingly pin this on to what I was wearing for the race. It was very, again, meditative for me. That was something I would really focus on. And then actually, because I was nervous, I would just pop my headphones on, maybe even sometimes read a book, but just lie down and actually maybe even doze a little bit before it's time to get stuck into my warm-up. Okay, so I'm just heading off on my warm-up. And for me, I'll try to stick to a nice, easy 10 minutes. It's very hot today, basically around 30 degrees where we are in Monza. So I'm not going to do too much. Start really slow, build it up a little bit towards the end, and then I'll stop, do some gentle drills, just some activations and stuff, and then I'll swap my shoes, because I like to warm up in one pair of shoes and then race in another pair of shoes, which I know is a luxury, but it's what I used to do. And then some hard strides just to get race pace in my legs. The nerves are really starting to build for me now. I always found on race day that I was just desperate to get on the line, because from that point on, I was good. I was in control. That was my environment. There was no more thinking, just doing. And but I'm going to say that this end of my warm-up, as I come on to the incredible Formula One circuit in Monza, which is where we are today, for a one-lap, very special, first time inaugural race. This is pretty cool, but it's not helping with my nerves. Formula One makes the track look small, but I've just turned as part of my warm-up onto one of the straights. Look how long this is. I'm not looking forward to this interminable straight quite early on. Maybe this is the finish. I don't even know which way we're going.
On the start. Everyone, the photographer is ready, so take your places for the picture.
Two of them here, Andy Badley drawn on the inside. And then Chogi, of course, the Commonwealth 5,000 champion, running well over 1,500 metres this season. But this will be a tough one. And Andy Badley has been running very, very strongly indeed. 3-2-7.
Yeah! We go together, in 3, 2, 1, go! Pasta Monza! Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo!
Come on, Andy.
We're off the start line and I'm trying to settle into my rhythm as early as I can. This is what I've been waiting for. I've been waiting all day just to get going, to get rid of those nerves and to settle into the relaxation and rhythm of running. We're doing one lap of the famous Monza F1 track at Puma's Faster Monza event, which is incredible for me. And it's only 2 days before the actual F1 Grand Prix itself, so the atmosphere's building already. That's something I'm trying to take with me as I settle into that rhythm and carry on into the race. But the early pace for me, I can tell, is already a little bit quicker than I was anticipating. As we get further into this first kilometre, I had a very clear pace goal in my head before I came into this race. I knew that I could maybe dip under 17 minutes if things go really well through 5k, and actually this lap is slightly longer than 5k, so I had to take that into account. That pace is right around 3:24, 3:25 per kilometres, but I was having some nervous glances at my watch and I could already see that we were very close to 3 minutes per kilometre for the first 500 metres or so, and I was trying to settle back a little bit. When I was competing at World Championships, Olympics, other different professional races, ultimately I was used to being in control and being able to maybe stay towards the back of the main pack with the confidence that later on in the race I was going to be able to come through. But I would also usually know exactly who I was racing against, whereas in this case, I turned up to another country, a slightly unusual race distance, surrounded by people I didn't know, so I was just having to gauge entirely off myself. I could definitely feel that early pace as we went through in around 3:13, so a little bit quicker than I'd wanted to do, but I think I'd settled back onto a slightly more sensible rhythm. I was trying to keep my breathing under control. Cannot tell you how hot it felt on that track. I was starting to feel the burn a little bit, like I was really pushing against my red line, and the gaps were starting to form, but I felt like I was in a pretty comfortable third place. And this is where the mind games for me started to come in. I started thinking about, finish position. It was a little bit like in my professional career when I might be towards the back of a large pack of runners, knowing that I couldn't let any gaps develop because I needed to be in contention in order to compete for victory or qualification as it came to the latter stages of the race. As I got well into the 4th kilometre, my breathing was becoming more ragged. I knew my heart rate was high. I made the mistake of looking at it and it was climbing even higher. And I just felt like I was slowing and it was a real war of attrition, but I still had a couple of kilometres to go. So it was a real battle. And this is also the point at which I was reminding myself of that will to compete that I used to have as a professional and trying to dig really deep to see whether I still had it. Then out of nowhere, 2 people passed me from behind, or came alongside me at least, and that was when I had to decide whether I could still fight for podium place, whether I still had that will to hang on and not let people pass me, and then ultimately be there right in the mix right at the end of the race to try and fight them for that place. But I was really struggling. These guys were running a little bit faster than I could hang on to. I could see my heart rate creeping even higher, and I was starting to labour my breathing and struggling to keep my feet ticking over and keep my stride going. I was feeling incredibly tired. They developed a little bit of a gap on me as we got towards 4k. And then once they'd got that gap and I passed through 4k in 3:26 again, I realised that actually I hadn't been slowing down. They'd been picking their pace up, which did give me a renewed kind of sense of purpose and a little bit of an energy boost as I didn't have too far to go. So as I came into the 5k, I found a little bit of rhythm, a little bit of a second wind, and I was really trying to close down on the gap on the 4th and 5th place in front of me. And I could still find that small amount of fight that I used to have coming back. I passed through 5k, the 5th k was 3:23, so I was 16:53, so inside my 17-minute target, but I was still, 5-10 seconds behind the place in front of me, and I just couldn't get them back. And at this point, I was really questioning whether I wanted it in the same way that I used to want it when I was competing, whether I could really put my body on the line and go above and beyond what I was capable of. I was digging deep, but my breathing, the heat, all of these things that feel like excuses, but they were playing on my mind and I was giving it everything. And then the finish line came into sight and it was further away than I wished for, but actually probably wasn't far enough away for me to be able to make any inroads on the guys in front of me. So I went all out as hard as I could, crossed the line, and then collapsed in a heap. One of the toughest things I've done in years.
Man, the old racer in me was sort of coming out, but not enough to compensate for, a fairly woeful lack of fitness relative to where I'd like to be. Oh, my mouth is so dry, and I've forgotten what racing feels like, but actually, it's the real motivation that I needed, the kind of kick up the bum to get back out there and fight for it, because after 3 or 4K, I was losing the fight for it and I was sort of drifting a little bit. And it's what I always say, that's your opportunity to run faster or to do better in a race than you hope you can. So I need to take my own advice and cling on to it. But I loved being back out racing. Now that I've finished, at least, I've got sweat in my eyes. I can barely breathe. It's so hot. But this is the magic of it. So now you should watch this video from the running channel, which hopefully will inspire you even more.